This message has no affiliation with the Department of War. Welcome back to the Martin Memo. We are coming to you live with our next guest, Travis Campbell. We are going to discuss a plethora of topics. This is an episode you do not want to miss. This is the Martin Memo. The Martin Memo. All right, well, Travis, it is great to have you on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to get into everything you have for me, and I'm excited to really talk about what I personally hold. And honestly, just getting out more info. Like, I love your show, I've seen it recently, and it is like your views on everything from abortion to immigration are just something I wouldn't really expect to see like pushed out a lot. And this is kind of what I want to do is help make those views be more mainstream if I ever can.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great goal, especially in today's day and age, where as much as it looks like Gen Z has a lot of momentum, I don't think we're necessarily there yet. And especially the gender gap is a continuing issue. So if we can get more people informed on what the conservative and the Republican Party is, hopefully we can bring some more awareness to those top ticket issues. Before we do move on, though, obviously we've talked a little bit, and for the most part, I know you well, but go ahead and tell the audience just a little bit about yourself and who Travis is.
So I'm a high school student. I live in Arkansas. I hold conservative, obviously, values. Um I will be attending college in at Oklahoma State this coming year, and I know how liberal and how like progressive schools and colleges have been pushing towards, and I feel like people need to hear the conservative side a lot more than they're getting because a lot of media doesn't push it. A lot of media doesn't like have those values and those stories pushed to the center of the stage. And so that's really what I believe in. That's really what I want to help move forward.
Yeah. No, I love that. And when we were talking about what we were going to discuss today, you said you wanted to talk about conservatism in America's youth, as you've already hinted. How has the rise of social media influenced young Americans to embrace conservative values like free speech and personal responsibility, in your opinion?
Oh, it's opened their eyes. It's made them realize that like not everybody, and even like 95% people are not on your side about everything. But social media has really almost amplified the problem of division. And because it's so easy to get in fights online, it's so easy to almost fight within each other. Like we have conservatives fighting with each other right now over, oh, is Ben Shapiro right? Or should we follow Candace Owens? Or we have Michael Knowles, Nick Fuentes, Myro. There's so many people who just feed into the division and don't call for unity. And I'm like, do you not understand what you're fighting for or against? Because in like liberal media has their own divisive issues. That's a totally different story in of itself. But conservative media just doesn't really understand a lot of their own things that they're fighting for or against. And social media, even in our youth, has made it to where conservatives are almost labeling their own as evil and their own as we don't accept you, we don't embrace you. And it's just like, you guys are not only hurting the conservative movement as a whole, you are also making yourself look bad because why would somebody listen to you when they can go listen to this person who's not feeding into the division and who's not going into like all of these things that conservatives are their values are built on. And it's the most prevalent in schools because schools are so far left leaning, right? That any conservative um, viewpoints and any conservative movement that tries to start, for the most part, is either labeled super, super offensive or it's shut down, or both in a lot of cases.
Yeah. And I'm glad this is one of the first things that I hit on starting this podcast is as much as people want to say that there's a big divide in the left with the socialist side and more of the moderate left, there is a divide that is increasingly growing within the Republican Party, just like you mentioned. And it's kind of scary to see in a way. There's the side of the more Nick Fuentes, and then you also have more of the moderate approach to things. So I'm glad you did point that out. What role do you think figures like Ben Shapiro, Nick Fuentes, Charlie Kirk play in attracting Gen Z to conservatism through organizations like Turning Point USA and others?
Well, why do you think Nick Fuentes and Ben Shapiro in particular market their shows towards like 18 to 24-year-olds? Nick Fuentes has even gone on record saying he wants to rally young men to be the best they can be and to be like critical of everything they see. Look at like how critical he is of the Israel-Iran war, right? Ben Shapiro, how critical he is of the general American media as a whole. And like, and then Charlie, obviously, where he was touring to all of these 19 to 22-year-olds and welcoming them, talking and openly saying, if you have a different opinion on me, come talk about it. Let's discuss why we think these different things. Because at the end of the day, I think 95% of Americans can agree that we all just want what's best for our country. We might disagree on how to get there, we might disagree on the ways to get there, but 95% of people just don't want America to be in the state it's in right now.
Right. Yeah, it's very well said. That was probably one of the better responses that I could have received. So you hit the nail on the head with that. One thing that we have seen lately is a shift, a surge, if you will, of Gen Z turning back the clock and kind of going towards the traditional values. Why do you think more people are rejecting progressive ideologies and turning towards traditional family values and patriotism?
It's America going back to what it was founded on, being founded on Christian values, being founded on the man is like the provider. You are supposed to provide, you are supposed to protect. And that can only like if you like lean into that and lean into the Christian values that this country was built on, that can only lead to good things.
Do you think cancel culture in any way kind of pushed some younger folks, some Gen Z, maybe Gen Alpha even, to the Conservative Party, or do you think it hindered it at all?
Oh, it absolutely pushed them to the Conservative Party because 90% of cancel culture, whether people want to admit it or not, comes from either moderates or the left that doesn't like open discussion.
Yeah.
Because conservatives, as much as we fight with each other and as much as we disagree with each other, we are open. We welcome differing viewpoints. A lot of Democrats and a lot of left-leaning people. Now, I'm not saying all of them. I have people that I know who are left-leaning, who are Democrats. They're generally like some of the best people I've ever met. But a lot of people, and Democrats and left-leaning people that I've seen online, just don't welcome open debate. They're stuck in their own mind almost. And I feel like cancel culture like pushed that that form of like canceling so much that people are just like, you guys don't understand what the youth actually wants. You don't understand what the youth cherishes. And that pushed a lot of people to the conservative movement because it's like we are very open. We have a very diverse range of people who stand in support of the conservative movement.
Right. I think that was one of the more remarkable things of this Trump coalition, if you will, is how he picked up all these voters that typically would not vote for the Republican candidate, and he brought them to the table because the left, like you mentioned, they're alienating people out there. If you have one thing that you disagree with them, if you're a liberal, but you say you're pro-life, they will alienate you and rip you to shreds. And a lot of people aren't looking for that. They want to be a part of a community, and the conservative movement is such a broad coalition. There are so many different demographics to grab from. There's a lot of people who are pro-choice in the movement, but still have the conservative values, and we don't alienate them. We bring them to the table. So that's one of the beautiful things that I do love about the conservative movement here. Shifting topics, I want to talk about the overview of Trump's term as the president. How did President Trump's tax cuts and deregulation policies fuel one of the strongest economic booms in recent U.S. history?
Oh, the economic impact is crazy. I mean, you have the GDP outperforming at levels that economists didn't think was possible. I mean, obviously, not all of Trump's first year has been good, and I'll get to that in a couple minutes. But I think the economic impact in particular is probably the biggest success story of the first year, because you have inflation going down from almost 7% in the last year of Biden's administration to 2.7%. That is almost unheard of inflation cuts in the last 2 decades. And I think the GDP outperforming as much as it did is a very, very good sign for the future of our economy, and more so the stability of it, because our economy's been unstable really since Reagan and Clinton back in the 80s and 90s. So I hope this is a very, very good step into our economy sort of stabilizing itself.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And he's proved everyone wrong. And he's proved me partially wrong too. I'm still more of a free market person, but everyone said the tariffs are just going to gut the economy. The economy is going to fall apart. We're going to go into a recession or a depression. And we're not seeing that. We're seeing almost the reverse of that. So it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out over the next few years. But as of right now, the country and the economy is just humming. One thing I would do want to talk about today as well is foreign policy. As much as people kind of overlook that, and that's not typically the top issues that they look for, foreign policy is arguably the most important policy of any president. How do you feel like Trump's foreign policy in his first year back in the White House is playing out thus far?
I don't think your viewers are going to like what I'm about to say here.
Oh, Lord.
I think this is one of his biggest failures,
Okay, let's hear it.
because for two big reasons. One, he campaigned on no new wars, right? It was confirmed yesterday. The CIA just bombed Venezuela, allegedly with the support of Trump, right? And I am all for stopping drugs coming into the country. I am all for stopping the cartels from wrecking our economy, bringing fentanyl in. I am all for that. Why are we bombing a country that doesn't even bring in 8% of the fentanyl into our country? It doesn't make any sense. I want our country to not be in a constant state of conflict. And then the other one, why are we even, this is going to ruffle some feathers, why are we still funding the Israel-Iran conflict at all? I'm a person of just if they are on the other side of the world and they are not providing any economic benefit to us personally, why are we funding those conflicts? Why are we getting involved so much? And people will say, Israel's our biggest ally in terms of that, right? And to that I'll say, why would they bomb the USS Liberty in 1967 with almost no warning and no regard for anybody on that ship? Most of the people in Israel, they don't like us, right? If you go look at studies on this, evangelicals and Christians have a very high opinion on Jewish people in Israel, and Jewish people in Israel have a very low opinion of evangelicals and Christians in the United States. Why would we continue to fund and participate in some cases, these wars and these conflicts that provide absolutely no benefit to us?
That would be fair. I'm going to do a slight little rebuttal, but nothing too crazy because most of your points are valid. The thing with Venezuela is yes, it's been confirmed that there was a land base that was striked. It was supposed to be a facility off the Venezuelan coast, which is described as an implementation area for loading drugs on boats. And I know fentanyl, that's not the main source, right? It's not really coming from Venezuela. But what I will say is that the numbers are skewed in a way. A lot of the precursors, the stuff to make fentanyl, do come from Venezuela. While fentanyl might not be made there, a lot of the precursors are shipped to ports and to Mexico and to the surrounding areas. So I think that's kind of the big concern, and that's why it's been struck. Another reason, as far as Venezuela, is they want regime change. It's pretty clear that the U.S. wants regime change, whether you like that idea or not. But Maduro is terrible. He's a socialist thug that lives in Venezuela. So I think that's kind of part of why they are doing that. They're trying to get rid of Nicolas Maduro and offer more of a friendly face to Venezuela. Whether that'll bode well, we'll find out. But that's kind of the basic ideology on what the U.S. is doing. We'll see how everything plays out. For the people saying that we're going to have a boots on ground invasion, I'm in the military. That's not going to happen. That is not going to happen. They always say that. They said it when the U.S. bombed the Fordo bases and the nuclear bases over in Iran. Oh, boots on ground invasion. This is the 2000 war all over again. No, it's not going to happen. But again, it's early. As far as Israel and I'm trying to make this brief. I'm not trying to go too far into it. As far as
Yeah.
Israel and Iran and funding that conflict over there, they are one of our biggest allies. I know you already hit on that point. If you really look in that part of the world, there is no other Western civilization. Israel's pretty much the only beacon over there. They also spend a lot of money to get a lot of our military equipment as well as our trade that we have set up with them. Could things be cleaner? And I think there needs to be transparency. Absolutely. We can agree on that 1,000%.
Mhm.
But there's still a lot of misinformation that goes on out there. That is one of my biggest critiques of Nick Fuentes. As much as I say, bring everyone to the table, some of the things that he does say are questionable. And I don't feel like we should necessarily hate Jews. I think that's stupid. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, that's just all I would have to say without going overboard on that topic there. But moving on, unless you'd like to add anything.
I don't
No.
think so. I think you basically hit on everything. I mean, yeah, I just think like my whole thing is why would we fund wars and why would we fund drone strikes and all of this stuff if we're not getting any economic or other benefits?
Yeah. My only argument to that again is as far as trade and as far as getting a lot of military equipment to and from Israel and sharing intelligence. Israel has some of the best intelligence out there, as well as some of the best military out there. So just as long as we can have that open communication, maybe not fund as
Hmm.
much, but you also have to look at the same side. As much as there's that little blip of arguably questionable things the Trump administration has done, he's also helped solve 8 wars to this point. We've reached historic agreements as far as more trade coming into the U.S. and trillions of dollars in investments into the U.S. There's still a lot to be played out, and it takes a lot of time to build these new plants in the
Hmm.
U.S., but we're moving in the right direction.
I would tend to agree with you, and I hope that the funding and then the wars keep coming to an end. I would hope that the Venezuelan conflict gets solved peacefully. I just don't. I'm of the opinion like I don't want new wars. I don't want useless conflict.
How do you think that the Trump focus on law and order, including appointing conservative judges, restoring faith in the judicial system, how do you think that has affected the U.S. today?
So there's actually two different points that I think in terms of like lowering like crime in different cities, right? Obviously like bringing like restoring law and order. I think he's been doing a pretty good job at that. I just wish that there would be more transparency as to how that's actually being done,
Mhm.
right? Um like in terms of, for example, mass deportations, right? One of the biggest reasons I was a Trump supporter was because he ran on mass deportations, and it's just like, yes, you are deporting a lot of people, but in terms of proportions, it's not even close to what you could be doing. So it's like you could be doing a bit more. It's not like you're doing a bad job, but you're not doing an A plus job. It's a B or B plus to me. And then in terms of restoring faith in the judicial system, the one thing that holds me back from kind of really giving praise in terms of that is how he's handling Epstein, JFK, and all of these files that should be public at this point. And I don't know if it's Trump controlling it. I don't know if it's the DOJ controlling it. I really don't know who's controlling what's getting redacted, all of that. But there's three Trump appointed judges on that Supreme Court and three conservative appointed judges that have been appointed in the last decade. So it's I have to kind of look at that and say, okay, this is at least on you a little bit on why we're not getting full transparency with these things. I do agree there have been some steps made, right? But there's still a long way to go before I really trust the judicial system with much of anything.
Yeah. As of late, the judicial system has almost served as a weapon for both sides in reality, but especially over the Biden administration. That's where it really ramped up, I'd like to say, maybe even borderline Obama as well. But there needs to be a lot done to restore the faith in the judicial system. As far as the deportations, we're at 2.5 million deportations is what I had seen yesterday. So there's still so much work to be done, but that is significant considering it the last president pretty much had open borders. There's so much to do, and hopefully now with the big beautiful bill officially coming into effect, hopefully that funding can escalate and we can get more ICE out there, more border agents, and get more people the heck out of our country. Um,
I'm
eh,
glad you mentioned the
yep,
big beautiful bill, by the way, because I actually did want to talk about that for a second. There are things I like about that bill, and things that I literally cannot stand.
yeah, yeah.
I'll start with things I like. The ramping up of funding of ICE and funding of the mass deportations. That is awesome. That is really, really good. Why are we putting $4 trillion back into the debt? Why are we increasing spending when Trump also ran on decreasing frivolous spending in Congress and in the Senate, right? That there's definitely some very, very good things about that bill now that it's officially passed, but there's also definitely some bad things that I'm hoping don't help that I'm hoping don't leak into the economy and what is already great GDP growth and stunt it.
What I will say on that note, because you're not wrong, the big beautiful bill is not that beautiful. It's a 6 out of 10 at best. So there are some great things. You already highlighted some. The Trump accounts where every newborn's getting $1,000 to invest into the stock market. That's great. That's going to show pro capital, and that's what we want to see in a increasingly socialized nation. So those are good things. As far as the bad things, the increase, the $4 trillion added, right? If you look at the alternative, if there was no big, beautiful bill that got funded, the alternative was worse. We would have been in a recession. Simple as that. That was the only thing that really potentially saved us from a recession. And the reason I say that is the tax cuts expired. So our taxes would have gone up through the roof. A lot of people would be budgeting more because of how bad the Biden inflation is baked into the economy. So as much as the big, beautiful bill is not so beautiful, if you look at what was on the other side, what the other side potentially could have been, the big, beautiful bill isn't that bad.
Yeah, I can agree with you on that.
Yeah.
One thing I would say that would help all of this without the bill and without any of this is stop the same three companies owning everything, right? Like BlackRock and Palantir are great examples of this. Why does BlackRock buy up all the single family homes? And people ask that, and it's easy because then they can charge whatever they want for it. They can charge whatever interest rates for they want for it because BlackRock and Palantir also control the banks. And they also why are we letting these corporations who basically own a monopoly in these different things, why are we letting them like one fund people in Congress and presidential candidates to begin with?
Mhm.
Like people who take like the corporate PAC money, CPAC, APAC money that funnel through BlackRock and Palantir, they you're voting on and against your own interest a lot of times and your own funding. Second of all, the like that if you stop that and stop these companies from having like a monopoly on these different like shareholders on these different like through banks, through whatever bills are passed to help protect them, if you would stop the monopolies, you would solve a lot of the economy and a lot of the problems we have with the housing market, with inflation, with tax rates. Like, stop the monopolies. I'm not saying stop billionaires. I'm not in that camp at all. But stop companies from owning. At a certain point, you have to have a threshold of like, if you're worth this much as a company, you can't be in these types of markets because then you're just gonna buy up everything and charge whatever you want, making inflation worse, making taxes worse, and making the economy worse.
You said a controversial opinion earlier. Now I get to say mine.
Mhm.
I think we should get rid of the super PACs. I believe that. I know that that was not too long ago. That was a court ruling, but we should not have super PACs. A lot of money from Elon Musk and SpaceX, the big super PAC over there, funded Trump's campaign. I'm saying that we need to end that and we need to end and have some sort of cap limit. Instead of paying hundreds of millions of dollars, maybe at the most someone can contribute is $1 million. And I'd probably go below that, honestly. We just need to stop these super PACs from owning candidates. Like you said, between Big Pharma owns Bernie Sanders and a few other people. We need to stop these super PACs. That's my controversial opinion for the day.
Not controversial to me. I agree with you 100%. And it's like also, why are Congress people allowed to trade stocks? It's that same argument. It's like
Yeah.
let's get more people behind the bill to ban Congress stock trading.
Yeah, yeah. I know that was in the House. I don't know. I haven't checked on it recently. About a month ago, I'd seen that they were making some headway, but I haven't
Mhm.
seen lately if that ever got passed or if it got moved anywhere or if it's just tabled for now. So
I think they're still gathering co-sponsors for it.
hopefully they do because that is so vital. Everyone in Congress, and I'd even say state representatives, state congressmen and women and senators, they should be required no state trading. So we'll see what all happens with that. I do want to move on now because we've talked so much about these great topics, but we have a few more to get through today. And the first one being energy crisis in America. It is no secret that we are in an energy crisis, especially with AI. AI requires a vast amount of power, and currently we don't have the electrical grid to support that. China is completely dominating us as far as opening up coal plants, as far as getting nuclear reactors online. They are dominating us and they are doubling their energy capacity in the next 2 years. It's insane. How have progressive green energy mandates contributed to the current energy crisis by increasing reliance on unreliable sources and driving up costs for families? Your words.
It's made it to where like our economy and our trading have become so increasingly reliant on just bringing in different parts. Like you bring in oil from Saudi Arabia, you bring in chips from China, right? And that's all good, but like you when you don't have anything actually being developed in your country and you ignore that fact for the better part of 30 years like our government has, it becomes it gets to a point where it's just like it's costing you more than it ever should to develop green energy for one, to get oil from these Middle Eastern countries because you don't hardly drill anything, and also the chips that China develops, you put like with Trump putting all the tariffs he did on China, that's great. That's great for the economy bringing in more money, but that also means that China's just going to stop selling to you. That means that all of these countries that you're putting tariffs on, it already cost them a lot to ship it to you in the first place, and it costs you a lot to buy it, right? These countries aren't gonna pay the difference. And with the progressive with the progressive policies that were passed on green energy under Biden, right? That makes getting oil, getting anything needed to even make these green energy mandates happen almost impossible because you're not going to pay, the US isn't going to pay what the countries are asking for because the dollar's going crazy and nobody wants to deal with how wild the dollar is in terms of how much it fluctuates in value. And the countries aren't going to pay the tariff rates because they don't have to. You're not you're not giving them anything that would make them want to say, "Oh yeah, we'll just sell this to you," because we're not developing anything. It's all a circle and everything goes wrong because another thing went wrong and it all just it's the circle of life of hell is what it is.
I will say that in regards to green energy, and then I'll move my focus over to tariffs. Green energy, I think that green energy has the potential to be great, but we cannot rely on it. It is unrealistic to say in 20 years we need to be on all solar and wind power. That is unrealistic. We do need to beef up all of our energy resources. One thing that I am a little critical on the administration is I don't think we should be saying no to any sort of energy, especially when we are in an AI war, you could say, with China and with some other countries, but predominantly China. We cannot afford to lose any energy. And especially when the world is going increasingly more electronic, where we're getting more EVs online, we need all the energy we can get. Are there some more dominant energy sources? Of course. Coal, oil, nuclear, those are always going to be the dominant. Solar and wind, they're just not there yet. But to shy away from that would be idiotic. So that would be one of my critiques on the administration. But again, we don't need these mandates. We don't need EV mandates. We don't need any of that. If you want to drive an electric car, that's great. I'm hoping that'll be my next car, actually. But if you want to drive a gas or a diesel, by all means, do that as well. In regards to tariffs, this is again why I am a big fan of free market systems. If you are going to box in China, which we should, they are a geopolitical enemy. That is good. Put a big old tariff on them. That is fine. But we need to be cutting trade agreements all around them everywhere, basically offering zero to little tariff. We should be boxing in China and any of our geopolitical enemies.
Yeah,
Your
you
thought?
can't just like put all of the limits on China and then just have no fallback plan. Because China's got fallback plans everywhere. They've got allies everywhere, especially just around them. And then you're gonna, like you mentioned AI in that race, obviously.
Yeah.
90, I think it's like 92% of all like the AI data centers and stuff are developed in China. And then you've also got companies like Nvidia and Macros that are cutting a bunch of like graphics card production, cutting a bunch of chip productions, and they're moving those solely into AI. And those companies are based in China. We need way more people and companies investing into AI that are American based. Like, because if you, I'm not a huge fan of AI personally. Like, I don't like where, like, all of the like, I'm more of like the creativity person, just like, I just want a human for this. But that's not the point of discussion I'm like making here. But whatever. The point is, if you don't have American companies ramping up their production and their investment into these different things, we're only going to fall farther behind China and everything because we are putting like all these tariffs and all these strict regulations on China with no fallback plan. They're just trading with other people. This is also exactly what happened in 2018 with the trade war that we had with them when that ramped up because again, we put regulations, we put tariffs on them, and then didn't do anything after that. We cut like I think a couple new deals in Asia somewhere, but that isn't gonna make up for all the revenue you're losing from China.
Yeah.
So just I think tariffs are good for the economy. I think they will end up working at like down the road the next year or two. But for them to work like you want to, you have to make sure you have covered every single one of your bases so that they are not just going to, oh, they should work. You need to guarantee that they will work and that you can put pressure on China.
Right. China is the biggest threat to America. We should be making sure we box them in, but how do we do that effectively? We put a big old tariff on them. People can debate that, but then everywhere around, you should be making agreements left and right. Whether you have some sort of tariff or not, you should want people and encourage them to invest in America, and then also encourage manufacturing to go elsewhere besides China. So that is one way that we can win in that war. And I do want to just say one little critique, but it's not that big of a deal. Nvidia,
NVIDIA.
yeah, Nvidia, good lord, is based in California. I will say that the chips are made in Taiwan,
Mhm.
not China. But that again, it's almost a schizophrenic type of policy because at first the administration said, okay, China's not getting any of these Nvidia chips. Okay, well now they can get some of them, and it just doesn't make much sense. So there needs to be more clarity on that end as well. And that is, as far as foreign policy, that would be one of my critiques on that.
Mhm. And people are like, if they're based in California, why can't you just make the chips in America? It's like America doesn't manufacture the parts.
Yeah.
They don't have the infrastructure in AI or in computer development to make the chips in California.
They do not have the semiconductors and materials required. We are not there yet, and that's why we need to make sure we have strong relationships. Allegedly, that's why we were looking at Greenland, because they do have some rare metals and semiconductors in that area. But again, we will see what happens. In what ways do you believe that Trump's energy independence policy, like expanding drilling and pipelines, make America a net exporter and keep prices low? Do you believe in that?
I do. I also think that the whole thing, like the just drill a lot, like drill baby drill, right? That was one of the big things like he was campaigning on that for
Yep.
almost a year, even longer than he was campaigning on no new wars and being the peacemaker, stuff like that, right? He That's great in concept. Where are you getting the oil from? Because the US does not have very high like interior oil productions. We get, I think it's 75% of our oil from the Middle East, right? So if you're going to ramp up drilling in the United States, that's great in concept, but how are you going to execute that is my big question.
Yeah, I think that's fair, but one thing I will say, and I'm double checking this because I think we're almost energy independent again. We were before Biden, and Biden ruined it, but I'm pretty sure we have most of our oil coming in from the US. So I am going to verify that.
If we
Um,
do, then that's great. Like I'm all for that.
Texas is the powerhouse producing nearly 50% of US oil. So we are getting quite a bit, and I'm pretty sure that that number is higher, adding on surrounding areas. And as far as drill baby drill, that was in like regards to the fracking that's conducted in Pennsylvania and areas around that. Um,
Hmm.
we are beginning to be energy independent once again. So again, this is just kind of, we'll see what all happens. Hopefully we don't have to rely on any foreign adversaries' oil. It should all be homegrown, if you will.
I hope that it is. I don't want us to rely on Saudi Arabia for
No.
oil like at all. I don't want us to rely on any countries for anything if we can develop them.
Right, 100%. I want to get your thoughts here. I mentioned it earlier. What's your thoughts on nuclear energy? Why is nuclear energy often overlooked in liberal energy discussions? Because it's a clean energy, you would think that they'd love it. And how could embracing it from a conservative perspective solve long-term energy needs?
Well, I mean, people embrace nuclear energy because you're right. It's a clean source energy, and it's also one of I think if not the most stable form
It-
of energy
yeah.
that we have,
Yep.
right? So, but people don't like it because oh, there's a chance the reactor could blow. There's a chance that this could happen, right? There have been a total of three known like big nuclear reactor failures, right? Obviously, people point to Chernobyl. That was mishandled so badly and is still covered up in a lot of ways by the Russian government today. So I feel like the reason that a lot of left-leaning people don't like nuclear energy is because of the failures that came before now, right? It's just like, but those are so unbelievably rare. You have to have so many lapses in judgment before you even get close to that point.
Right.
So it's just like why are we so caught up in the green energy or and oh oil and coal are just bad for the environment nuclear energy's right there. Like I am a big like supporter of just like put nuclear power plants everywhere because as long as you run them correctly and don't leave them for weeks slash months at a time without checks like Chernobyl did, like Fukushima did,
Yeah.
right? Just run them correctly, don't be stupid, and you won't have any problems.
Right. With the energy, with nuclear energy as well, we have to remember that this was years ago. They didn't have nearly the safeguards and all the fail safes that we do have now, and it wasn't nearly as efficient as it is now. There's so many safeguards. It's more efficient than it has ever been. They just approved the Trump administration $1 billion to go reopen 3 Mile Isle in Pennsylvania, that nuclear plant that had a sort of meltdown. So hopefully we can get more areas like that. And also there's these small generation 3 module reactors that are going all over the place. So again, hopefully we can get more nuclear energy online and people can rely and trust in it because those old ways are a thing of the past and we have much more reliable safeguards to prevent a sort of nuclear fallout.
Mhm. Yeah, I hope we push more towards being nuclear dependent and having way more of a ratio of nuclear energy to oil and coal and natural gas or whatever because it is one of the biggest like modern marvels that we have of nuclear energy and being able to keep it stable, being able to have it be clean and good for the environment. It's
Right.
just like can we not be scared of Russians being completely stupid back in the 60s on how to actually run a nuclear power plant?
That would be nice. I think Russia's very questionable even still today. I do want to circle back on one quick point and then we'll pretty much wrap it up here and get into the fun questions. So, I did fact check it and make sure that we got all of our ducks in a row. Approximately 65 to 70% of oil used in the US is produced within our borders.
Good.
30 to 35% of oil we use is imported from other countries, with Canada being the main supplier of 60% of all US imports. So we are pretty much energy independent. We still rely on our neighbors, but at least it's not political adversaries or places like Saudi Arabia. But with that being said, I got three fun questions to give you. The first one being, what is your favorite Bible verse?
My favorite Bible verse is Matthew 6, verse 33. So, where it is, seek first the kingdom of God and all his righteousness, and all else will be given to you. This is a verse I try to live by myself, right? It's just like, if I need something, I need to trust God that it will happen and that he will provide for me what his plan, like, because obviously he has a plan for my life and he knows how my life is going to go. So I just need to trust that He will like bring me the prosperity and what I desire.
Yeah, I love that, brother. Me and you both. Here's another one for you. Picture your hand is basically five different taps here, and it's all different types of liquid. All right. So what I mean by that is maybe your pinky is gasoline. What five liquids would you dispense?
Um, do they have to stay liquids or can they solidify over time?
They have to stay liquids.
Okay, so oil is obviously one of them. I mean, just the most useful thing throughout any person's entire life because they have to keep buying it, obviously.
Yep.
Um, See, I would go water, but I feel like that's just kind of boring. I feel like everybody would just pick water.
Okay.
And yeah, you know what? I'll just go water because
Yep.
I mean, you need
Do
it
it.
to obviously live. Um, Three. Now here's where I can start getting a bit more fun.
Yep.
Three. I think I'm gonna go with a kind of sauce because I love condiments. I love sauces. I'll go
Okay.
hot sauce. I love hot
There we go.
sauce.
Nice.
I'll actually go with bleach, and here's why. Because one, cleaning. I like it would make cleaning anything like super super easy. And if you like, since I have water in another hand, I could literally be a washing machine.
Yeah, I suppose you could. All right, I got one more here. What is your favorite college football team and favorite NFL team?
Oh, you literally asked me the perfect question. I'm literally going to college to study sports media. Like this is the perfect question.
Love it.
So, college football team,
Yeah.
Oklahoma.
Even with
OU.
Oklahoma State, isn't that a sin?
I don't hate Oklahoma State like a lot of people do,
Okay.
and their sports media is like top five in the country. So I mean, it's worth being around Orange for a few years. Okay,
Okay.
but yeah, Oklahoma. I grew up watching them. I have autographs from like almost the entire 2011 and 2012 teams when I was like 5 years old,
Dang.
and it we we lost to Bama. I'm still mad about that. I still have not gotten over that loss, but yeah, it was. And I mean, I just remember growing up watching Baker, Sterling Shepard, Richard Sanchez, like all of, or Zach Sanchez, sorry, all of these guys that I just hold to my heart and hold memories watching. I'm just like, I can also say, just like, I was there in the stadium for several moments. It was awesome. NFL team is the Seattle Seahawks. I actually, in another room in my house, I have a floating Seattle Seahawks helmet that has like magnets on both, on one top
Yep.
part and magnet on the helmet, right? And it just spins constantly. I love it. JSN is a top three receiver in the NFL, and anybody who doesn't think so, you're wrong. And it football is my life, man. I love football so much. If you ask me, like, if there's one sport that I would like love to work around and like be part of the media for the rest of my life, I would choose football every single time.
Love it. That's awesome. I'm a Green Bay Packer fan, and you
Oh,
hurt me in 2014, so that's still pain that I feel to this day because that was the first year I really got into football, and I thought we were going to go all the way. I was so excited, and then 2014 NFC Championship game just destroyed my heart. But
you
anyway,
guys still hate Brandon Bostic?
oh yeah, well, you know what? We just don't talk about him. It's like Voldemort, he who shall not be named. So, well, I tell you what, it has been a pleasure having you on, Travis. I just want to say thank you for joining. It was a pleasure having you on, and I'd love to have you on sometime in the future. Maybe we'll ask a few more sports questions for you.
Of course. Hey, if any of his viewers watching, if you want to go watch a good football YouTube channel, I have a channel called Football Dictionary. I'd love if y'all went and supported it. So if any of y'all are looking for any sports content, find me there.
All right, there you go, and I'll make sure that I put it in the description, so you will have it there to access it. All right. Well, folks, that's all we have in store for today. Be sure to join us on Friday as we go over a surprise topic. Share your thoughts on X, follow us on Instagram and Facebook at the Martin Memo, and do not forget to subscribe on YouTube. Now, in case I don't see you, good morning, good afternoon, and good night. This is the Martin Memo.